Hi, this is Wesley.
This is Kashina.
And you're listening to
In Between the Lines. How you doing today?
I am alright.
I like how you're alright, because today's episode is
Crazy.
It's gonna be a doozy.
Oh, definitely.
Because this show, it's definitely a show.
Oh, that's true. But before we get into that spicy of a topic,
Yes.
hey, do you want to know something?
You want to restart?
No, we gotta keep going.
You want to keep going? Gotcha. Well, let's see what I want to know.
Look, we protect each other.
Do we now? I feel like with this episode, we're not going to protect each other for very long.
One specific person in particular.
We're going to get into it later. But for those, to just let you guys know, we're going to be talking about the show called Absolute Duo. Oh boy.
And, well, I'm going to give some context as to why we're talking about this.
Yeah.
We're starting up something. It's still going to run along with
In Between the Lines.
So, we picked 3 anime, and we ran them through a generator. This is the one that showed up.
Yeah, because basically we want to try to not just talk about anime that we like, we try to do a more randomized thing so our range is a little bit more varied as to what we actually do talk about.
Yeah. Because
there is a lot of anime that we like and a lot of video games that we like, but we also thought maybe we should have some variety into it. And so what we do, our only rules is that we're given 2 weeks to watch an anime, in which me and you both choose one, and then we randomly pick one from the season that is currently happening.
Yeah.
Put them through a number generator, and then that's the one that we pick to watch. The one rule is it can only be 12 episodes or at most 13 episodes.
Yeah.
And like I said, we have 2 weeks to watch it so that we can come into the studio and get ready to record and talk about it.
Yeah.
And so
Fooly Cooly would have been an interesting one.
Fooly Cooly would have definitely been an interesting one, but we chose
Absolute Duo.
And this is actually one that you put into the pot.
Yeah, only because I watched it back in high school, which was, we graduated back in 2015.
Yeah, and
so,
this came out in 2015.
And so I came to you and I'm like, hey, I just finished watching this show called Absolute Duo. But the way I had watched it through YouTube. And so when I watched it through YouTube, apparently the person that uploaded it had sat there and cut out bits and pieces of it, but they kept all the action parts.
Makes sense.
So I fell in love with due to the action. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on here? Because you get certain parts of it. So like a certain encounter is supposed to happen, or a certain fan service interaction is supposed to happen, and it's just like, what the heck is going on here? Because that part's cut out, so it's just 2 characters standing there, and then she goes to a shocked expression, and then like an action scene happens, and I'm like, what happened here?
Remember back when we were doing our childhood to now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, those were the days of YouTube. Anime on YouTube was like parts 1 through 3. There's something wrong with part 2.
Yep.
You can't find it, but you gotta go through different things. When
7 leads back to 2.
Oh my god! But no, so actually I should mention this real quick. Sadly, due to poor time management on my part, I've only seen episodes 1 through 4, and then I watched episode 12 just so I could see how the anime actually ends. You, on the other hand, my astute fellow,
Hi.
You've actually watched this show through and through.
Twice.
Well,
twice. Okay.
Twice.
I say
fully.
twice because I had to watch it anyway, and then I had to go back and take notes on it. So
yeah, you watched it twice. Well, I barely went through the first time, but I feel like I have some things that I want to talk about, and there are some things you want to talk about.
Yeah, we're pretty much in the same boat, but yeah.
But so for this first part, real quick, what I'm going to do to you is I'm going to flip the script a little bit. You know how I'm supposed to be the co-host and you're the host? Sometimes you question me and stuff like that.
Oh no, it's going to be another Kawakami interrogation all over again.
Yep, this is another Kawakami 2.0. Time for me to interrogate you about this show. So, first off, in a quick synopsis, quick rundown as to what the show is actually about. Well, in your words, what is Absolute Duo about?
It's about nonsense.
It is. I mean, I can agree with you on that one.
I mean, they don't even explain what absolute duo is.
Wait, we're not getting to that part yet.
You know what? How about this? How about you give the explanation of what absolute duo is?
Sure, absolute duo. So,
yes, absolute duo.
The show. Alright, so the show Absolute Duo, it's centers around this one guy named Toru, or Tor, as it's said in the dub.
Tor Kokonoi.
Yeah, Tor Kokonoi. He, in this world, there are people who have this ability called Blaze. Basically, their souls is empowered to the point where they can actually create a weapon out of it. Usually, it's an actual weapon like sword or a gun or stuff like that. But a lance, you know, there's different things that it can turn into. But for Tor, he's an irregular, and instead of a weapon, he actually just creates a shield.
Yeah.
So he is known as an irregular in this universe. And there's an academy where they take these people as young kids, or not as young kids, but as like high schoolers, and they train them up via battle tactics and stuff like that, so that they can have basically like a little army of people who can fight. We're not really given a villain.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just,
all like later on, but it's weird because like
it's more or less the school is trying to achieve something called Absolute Duo, because in addition to these people having these special powers and stuff like that, they have to form 2-man group called duos.
Yeah.
And basically, you live with this person, you interact with this person every day. You're supposed to get to the point where eventually you are almost like one and the same.
Yeah.
So it's, if you ever seen the movie Pacific Rim, it's basically that.
Pretty much.
It's interesting. And it leads...
The one thing that I will say is that, like, when you were talking about, like, the whole manifestation of the soul, and you have, like, the blazes, it's weird because they call them Lucifers.
Yeah,
Lucifers. It sounds like Lucifer, but it's a K, and I'm like, okay, but like they get injected with Lucifers, and so it basically manifests within their soul, and then they can bring it out to bring the weapon of their choice, and it's just weird.
If you're wondering why we're having a hard time explaining this, it's because, you know what, I'm gonna save that as a con for later. You'll understand why we're having a hard time explaining this later on in this episode. So, you know. Moving on. Also, spoiler warning, I don't know if many people know about Absolute Duo.
Go on.
Spoiler warning for those who do want to try to watch the show. Anyway, so it's time for me to start interrogating you. You've already answered the when and how you ran into this.
Yep.
Was you just found it on YouTube.
Yeah.
As a high schooler.
Yep.
Oh, the good old days.
The good old days.
The good old days. Well, back in 2015, anime was still... It wasn't as it was today, where it was seasonal. It was one of those things like, hey, here's a new show.
Yeah.
It's one of those times. Where it's like, what anime came out this time? Oh, it's just this. So...
Less toxic community.
Let's talk... It's a weird time. It was a weird time back then. So, continue on with my second question. Why did you stick with the show? As we kind of, like, previewed a bit.
Yeah.
The show is a bit weird. We kind of have our gripes with it. But what was the one thing that made you stick with the show in the first place?
Mainly the action scenes, and then like I guess like it was the action scenes, and then like it was I just wanted to learn more about the different characters due to like the whole things getting cut out due to YouTube. And I'm like,
oh yeah, YouTube was like, we're not gonna allow that.
And I'm like, okay, I want to know what happens with this certain character. Like I want to know what happens with Tor, because Tor has he has a tragic backstory where this random. I'm pretty sure this dude that's in his backstory is like a rival of his, and he's like, the only reason why these people are gone is because they were weak. And I'm like, who the heck are you? And then this random chick jumps in front of him and then ends up getting your back sliced, and I'm like, what the heck is she? Nothing is explained.
So there's a lot of mystery.
Yeah.
And you're like, I just want to find out what happens.
Exactly.
So, I mean, okay, I can see that as a very valid reason as to why you want to stick with this.
Also, the fight scenes were interesting.
You said the fight scenes were interesting. But as the anime was going on and it was coming closer to the end, like, what made you be like, was it one of those moments where you realize, like, 6 or 8 episodes in that you're just like, this really isn't my cup of tea, but I'm almost done with it. Might as well just watch it to the end.
Yeah, kind of. Like, it got to there was, like, one scene where, like, they had to, like, fight in a mall, and I'm like, why are we fighting in a mall? Can we be in a more open area?
Oh, yeah, because it reminded me of the time where, okay, so the main character, his name is Tor. Tor, I've mentioned this before, but he has a partner named Yulia, and it was when they were fighting Professor Bun Bun.
Yeah.
She'll be explained later. They were fighting this lady called Professor Bun Bun, and they were fighting in the school.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Because you have a Neo Gladius, and a Neo Gladius is when it's basically a battle royale, everyone versus everyone, and you basically, I don't even know how long it lasted. I think it was like from like the beginning of school toward like the end or whatever.
No,
they said like they had like 1 hour left, and I'm like,
the battle thing was 2 hours long.
Oh, 2 hours long. In my notes I wrote 1 hour long.
The reasons for the fights, some of them made sense, some of them didn't, a lot of them didn't. I'll be quite honest with you here, buddy. This show was just a lot of, hey, let's do this. There was no, yeah, let's do this. There was no, but how did we get to this?
Because like there was some training here and there, and I was like, okay, because like before the Neo Gladius started, there was a moment where Tor and Yulia were sitting here training, and Tor's like, I can't use this shield properly, and I'm like, how long have you had this? Like, how do you not know how to use it?
Exactly.
And then there's like the whole Neo Gladius thing was pretty interesting. You got to see like him fight some of his classmates, and I was like, okay, that's cool. Who's next? He's like, I want to take a shot at Tora, who's his best friend pretty much. And he's like, I want to take a shot at him and his partner. And then Tora gets knocked out. Scream. Ah!
Ah!
And then, come to find out, Professor Bun Bun is the one who took him out. And I'm like, why is the teacher fighting? Like, help.
Help me. It's, okay, yeah, so...
And the teacher's crazy!
Yeah, she's crazy. Like we said before, the show is, like, it's absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
And this leads to my next question, which is, like, what is your overall thoughts of the show? Like, first off, how would you rank it? Between 1 and 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, what placement would you put this, show?
I give it a 4.
A 4? Less than average? I can see that, though.
You understand why.
And I'm about to get to that thing, why, but before we get to the why, let me ask you, what are the positives of this show? For you, what are your positives of this show?
Well, the fight scenes were interesting, like I said before.
Yeah.
Some of the character development was kind of interesting. Like, some of the duo pairings was kind of interesting, especially the one with Yulia and Tor. Like, that whole thing... I kind of enjoyed it because it was more like a parent and child relationship, which you don't really see most times. Most times it's just, oh, that's his girlfriend, and I'm like, okay, but this is more like a parent and child where like you have this dude and he's like, okay, hey, you shouldn't go out too far if you're going for a swim. Hey, you're gonna need some help with this fight.
It was very like, you know, he was taking care of her, and it wasn't like, you know, kind of creepy or anything. And I could see that.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Then you got Lilith. She's like, I'm an exception. What the heck is an exception? And she's like, the rules of this school do not apply to me because I am an exception. No matter how many times you say you are an exception,
you
what
don't explain
is an exception?
What an exception is. I can see that.
Yeah.
So now that we're done with your positives, it's time to get to your negative. Now we spoke about this a little bit before the show, and I need to keep you in my rings here, my dude. You are allowed to mention one particular scene that you don't like when it comes to this particular thing that you do not like. That you need to explain fully about this thing.
Okay, I'm gonna preface this now.
He got heated.
15 minutes.
For 15 minutes, I heard nothing but a rant about this one thing.
Don't get me wrong. When it comes to Honoka Miyabi, there's two things. I love her and I hate her.
Alright then, why do you love her?
I love her because she does something that no other character has been able to do, which is basically confess your feelings to someone.
You know what? The other people in this show, yeah, that is true.
Yeah. Now on to why I hate her.
Oh boy.
I hate her, and I use that term loosely, mind you. I dislike her because, like, you take this character and who has so much potential, and then you just throw her out the window.
Oh yeah. They really did. They did not do well with this character.
Yeah.
When it came to this anime, like, at all.
And you can clearly tell that she has a crush on Tor. He's
Yeah.
obviously the main character. He's our MC. And you can clearly tell she has a crush on him from day one. Also, where the heck was she during the freaking entrance exam? She was over here cowering in a corner. You in the entrance exam, you gotta fight the person sitting next to you. What, was that person just like, nah fam, I'm good, she can have this one.
She can take this one.
I don't need to be in part of this academy. I'm out.
With Miyabi, I'm gonna preface what you said earlier about how, you know, they took this really good character who could have potentially became something really, really brilliant, and they stripped her down and made her into one singular thing, and that was that thing he said before. She has a crush on Tor.
Yeah.
And they run this straight to the ground.
Oh yeah.
They dug it in so deep, and it's like, yeah, we understand. She has a crush on Tor. But you don't have to make it the only aspect or characteristic of her, like, entire character.
Yeah.
Yes, she has a crush on Tor. It basically becomes creepy. Like, so like I said, I only watched 1 through 4 and then I've seen 12. But he basically explained to me everything. There's a beach episode. Yeah. You already know where this is going.
Beach episode.
For those of you who watch anime, beach episodes are usually just like that filler episode. And it's the only plausible reason why everyone is all of a sudden in a bathing suit.
Yeah.
That's literally
It's the only logical reason why anyone's ever in a bathing suit.
But basically, during this beach episode, Miyabi confesses to Tor.
Yep.
And Tor rejects her.
He basically says that he can't love her because he is weak.
And so...
Then she's like, I'm an idiot. I should have never said anything in the first place. And then your girl runs away.
She runs away. And then she goes off, she does her own thing for a little bit. She comes back brainwashed, and she's just head over heels for Tor.
And it's just real, like, at that point it got weird. Because, like, there's this thing called a killing game. In which you have one side, like, the entire army of this old man going up against the academy with Tor and his friends. And they bring in Miyabi as the big guns. And then I'm just like, why? But you bring her in, and then she's like, oh, Tor will love me forever. And I'm like, no. First off, you did good without borrowing the power that you have now. Yeah. Because when they were in that fight that we said earlier, like, Miyabi was able to push Tor back with her strength alone.
Yeah.
But then she's like, Tor, I will be with you because, you know, you said you were weak, I will protect you. And I'm like, that's what Yulia is for.
It basically, if you watch this show and you see Miyabi, you kind of understand why he just does not like her. Because they literally just did not do well with this character. And I wanted to kind of stop you there because...
Yeah. If she didn't stop me, your boy would have ran in for more 15 minutes.
Because it is hilarious how much you just do not like her. You despise her not because of her, but because of what they did to her. Yeah. So, I'm going to go to my point of view, seeing as how you were the one that told me, hey, well, you put it in the pot and I had to watch it because of you. Yeah. So now this is my take on the show.
Go ahead.
Much like you, I'm very meh when it comes to this show. Mm-hmm. I'm not fond of it, but I don't absolutely hate it. Yeah. Now, I'm going to tell you the things that I like about the show first, and then I'm going to go into my cons, because my cons list goes
pretty deep.
Goes in pretty deep. It goes in pretty far too. So, pros. The concept of this story and everything behind it is pretty interesting. So I'm going to relate some things back to different anime and stuff like that. So I'll do my best to try to explain things. Yeah. The fact that these people can make weapons out of their souls. Their souls equal the power of their weapons and stuff like that. Yeah. I find that really cool. Yeah. It's, for those of you who've watched, like, Soul Eater, you know, how one person is like a weapon and they can turn into the weapon. It's basically passed down through birthright and stuff like that. It's kind of weird, but the person becomes a weapon. That's pretty interesting. I like that about it. And for those of you who've ever watched Guilty Crown, would know that the main character is able to Wesley's laughing because he knows I hate Guilty Crown.
She only hates it because of one person.
This one guy. This one guy I just do not like. And I know one day I'm going to have to watch it so that I can talk about it on the show.
Lo and behold, it's probably going to get put into the pot sooner or later.
I know I'm going to probably put it in the pot because I hate myself and I'm just going to do it out of pure hatred. But anyway, in Guilty Crown, I'll talk more deeply about this. But basically, the main character is able to pull out your soul.
Yeah.
But your soul is like manifested into a shape or an object of something. Some people's is like giant scissors, a sword, a vase. Like they can be very like random things like a vase. It's just really, really, really weird.
Yeah.
And seeing how like that, it's always connected back to the soul, and that's what I like about it. Is like, you know, weapons can be manifested from your soul. That's a really cool, interesting concept. Mm-hmm. Also, the concept of two man groups. Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned earlier, if you've seen the movie Pacific Rim, in order for them to control this gigantic robot, it's very hard for one person to do it because it's like too much stress on like their brains, and it could kill them when they're fighting kaijus and stuff like that. So they need two people to do it, and they need to be in complete sync in order for them to fight efficiently.
Yeah.
I like that part about it. I like, you know, the two-man group. Also relating back to Soul Eater. One day we're going to have to talk about Soul Eater.
Yeah.
With Soul Eater, each team that's out there are a two-man group. You have a maestro, or...
I think you have a maestro, and then I think you have...
Oh, no. It's a Meister and a weapon. So the Meister...
I don't know why I was about to call the weapon a Reaper.
No. So the Meister is the person that is in complete sync and is well balanced with the weapon. And they basically... The weapon can't control themselves in most situations.
Yeah.
They can't control themselves, so they need a Meister to help them use their powers and use their abilities through and through. And it's really, really interesting. I love the show. It was the one show that got me more into watching anime more. Back to this show. Mm-hmm. Seeing that two-man group come back in this show, I really like that about it.
Another way you can also think about it, because I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, was Power Rangers? I don't know. It's weird.
Power Rangers.
It's weird for me to say that. I mean, yes, it is from Japan, because it originated from Japan.
Yeah.
But the way how I think about it is that, like, if you're fighting alone, you have no one to back you up, you have no one to cover your weaknesses. Two-man group, you have someone to always back you up and cover for your weaknesses.
Yeah.
That's why I brought in Power Rangers, because basically, you're fighting as a group, you can cover each other.
Yeah, they basically have each other's back, and I really like that part about it. And I like how they try to implement that into this. And I'll explain why. It's just, this show is kind of a disappointment. But anyway, back to the positives. Many times on the show I've mentioned how much I love music. I love music of any kind. If I like the opening, I'm more or less, much to my demise, will put it on my playlist and then do my best to actually watch the show. Because, you know, it has wronged me before. Guilty Crown is obviously, you know, the top example.
Yeah.
But... If I like the intro,
I don't know, was the example for me.
If I like the intro, I'm gonna watch the show. But not only that, I also like the ending songs too. It's not very often that I like the ending songs. Like a couple of the ending songs when it came to My Hero Academia.
Yeah.
I freaking love it. And they're on my playlist and I love it every day. Same. But when it comes to endings, I usually skip over them because I'm like, alright, what's the next episode? Come on, I'm ready to go. But for this one, 2 of the 3 opening endings that I've heard they were both amazing, and I'm like, yeah, I'll put this on my playlist any day of the week. It's absolutely fine. And then the third thing I like about this show is the references back to Norse mythology. I have always been interested in Norse mythology, Thor, Loki, stuff like that.
I think they mentioned it like a couple times.
Yeah, they mentioned it because like
I remember Yulia mentioned it with Thor.
Yeah, because she said Thor's name.
It reminds her of Thor, and then she gave his
punching attack,
Mjolnir.
Yeah, so. Mjolnir. And I was just like, oh, that's so cool. I love it. So it's like little references back to Norse mythology. Now, time for me to end with the positives.
Negatives!
And begin with the negatives. So, my cons with this show, and he can agree with me with this one, pacing is weird.
Oh yeah, pacing's definitely weird.
In one episode, so many things could happen, and then in the next episode, almost nothing could happen.
Yeah.
and I'm always left in the dark as to how the pacing actually works. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why? There's a lack of focus when it comes to the show. One thing I can say is, I know I've only watched the first 4 episodes and I watched the last episode, but Wesley has reconfirmed with me that when it comes to, there's only 12 episodes,
Yeah.
an outside threat isn't actually shown, like a real threat isn't shown until like
halfway through.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
until like the end, like the later.
yeah,
later
like
half.
episode 8 through 12.
Yeah.
Like that's when we're introduced to like an antagonist of some kind.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're just kind of like, all right, so now I'm supposed to be invested? Like,
and
what
it's
does
weird.
that mean?
It's weird because, like, the threat comes in, like, during the training camp scenes, and I'm like, why is this a thing? Like, you don't really explain it, you just, okay, hey, we're gonna take Sakuya, who's the head mistress. Like, how does that whole thing work?
Like, all of a sudden, it's so weird as to why they're just kind of like, yeah, we're just gonna throw it. And it makes me think, like, the writers of the show were just kind of like, yeah, oh no, we didn't put in a villain. Here, we're gonna do it now. But, sir, we're almost done with, like, the 12 episodes.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Put him in.
Just put him in, now.
No. Like, if you're gonna make... I get I'm being a little bit nitpicky.
Yeah.
But if you're going to make a villain, make him have an everlasting threat.
Yeah.
Like, don't sit here and just... It feels like you just threw someone a bone and just being like...
and give him a real motive.
Like, I get the guy lost his brother.
And he's mad.
But really? That's your whole motivation for destroying a school and becoming like, power's all I need? Power's only gonna get you but so far.
I know having your brother killed and you want to avenge him is a really like admirable need, is like an admirable thing. But the way they kind of explained it, it was just no.
Yeah. And it was just weird because like every time he looked at Tor, he was like, "Oh, I would just want to see your face in despair." I'm like, so now you're going from being power hungry to seeing someone in despair? Make up your mind, my guy. Which one you want? Do you want the power? We can give you the power. You want despair? You're gonna have to go somewhere else with that.
So I know we're running a little bit long with this episode, so I'm going to try to hurry up with my part. So another thing that I don't like about this show is they rely too much on fan service.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, who are kind of like new to anime and stuff like that, fan service is basically they put inappropriate scenes. It's not inappropriate. I don't know how to explain this.
It's basically just something to amuse the viewer. Basically.
Something to amuse the viewer. So, for example, this show has a lot of females. They have a lot of female protagonists and stuff like that. A lot of them are well endowed in the chest area.
Yep.
You can kind of see where this is going.
Yep.
There were times where the camera was a bit too focused on the female anatomy, let's just say that.
Yeah.
And then there are also kind of some scenes where we see a little bit of nudity and...
Yeah, it's just weird.
It's really, really, really weird. And, like, some fan service, like, they have fan service in anime. It's a thing that's somewhat expected.
Yeah. And
it can be, you know, like, kind of like an accepted thing. It's something that you'll just see in anime if you ever do decide to just watch anime.
Yeah.
But... a lot of shows, they do it very tastefully, or they don't do it too often. Like, every once in a while, you'll see, like, a little bit of fan service, but they don't focus too hard on it. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times, they push their comedy with the use of fan service, and it goes to the point where it gets really uncomfortable to watch sometimes.
Oh, yes.
This is one of those shows where I definitely could not have, like, watched it anywhere near my mother. I would have to been in my room, door closed, to watch it. Not because it's perverted or anything, but because of the fan service and the many misunderstandings my mother would have when watching this show.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there are a whole lot of misunderstandings within this show.
And then the misunderstandings also leads on to my next point of it. This show is a harem.
You're gonna have to explain that one.
Yeah, re-education as to what a harem is basically when you have one male protagonist building up a group of female protagonists around him. Usually those female protagonists have a interest in the male protagonist. and it's not like a power fantasy, but it's sort of like a male's fantasy of he wants all these women to chase after him.
Some of them fall into different categories. Some, like, you have, like, the childhood friend category, or you have the ditzy category, and
yeah,
it just gets weird.
And with this anime, the way they built up this harem, no. Harems in general, I'm not really into harems. Like, I'll watch them if it just so happens to be a harem, I'm like, oh well, whatever. If it's not like the main focus. But with this show, it was very miss for me.
Yeah.
I did not like how they handled
like,
it.
When I originally watched this, I didn't really get any of that.
You mainly stay for the action.
Yeah, because it just makes me feel uncomfortable, like, seeing it being portrayed through those kinds of views, and I'm just like, this is just weird. Like, I get that you want, to have, like, this, be surrounded by a whole bunch of females, but no.
Yeah.
Like, if it's just one, I'm okay. If you have a whole bunch, stop trying to pull a Persona protagonist, okay?
Oh yeah, the Persona protagonists when they just date every girl that's available.
And stop trying to pull a Persona 3, okay? You don't need to sit here and date every single one. Lo and behold, none of them know that you're dating each one of them. I'm just like, you need the boys!
Oh no! It can lead to some very, very awkward situations, and like I said, the whole time I was just kind of like, this is really, really awkward.
Yeah.
So, seeing as how this episode's running a little bit long, that was basically the end of my thing. So, the very last question I would like to ask before we end the episode is, like, what are your overall thoughts? Would you recommend this series to somebody else? And as to, if you would, why? So, first off, would you recommend it?
View at your own risk, people.
View at your own risk. It's one of those where you're just kind of like, I'm the same way where I'm like, I really wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but if anybody was to ever ask me, what's a bad anime? This would be an example, along with King's Game.
Oh, yeah.
Those two anime would be those that, like, if somebody asked me, it's a weird question, but like, if someone's like, if anime is so good, is there anything bad with it? And you're like, oh yeah, we have our bad eggs, and then I'll show them these two animes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What about for you?
For me, oh definitely. This is one of those.
You would recommend it to someone?
Oh no, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. But if somebody asks me what's a bad anime, I'm like, yeah, here you go.
Okay.
If they ask me intentionally, like, what is a bad anime?
Absolute Duo. There you go.
Absolute Duo. You're welcome. So we reached the end of our episode. Before we call out, before we head out of this for the episode for today, I would like to let you guys know that
and subscribe.
First off, like and subscribe. We'll be posting this onto YouTube as well as Podbean.
Yeah.
But also, we've already chose our blind anime for next month. And again, this is another one. Wesley won this the second blind pick, which I think it's rigged now because I'm waiting for my turn, man. But no,
in all honesty, I thought yours was actually going to get picked.
I was sad that mine didn't get picked. But anyway, the blind pick for next month will be an anime
called Tokyo ESP.
And I'm excited because I saw some promotional videos about it, and I saw a poster of it, and there's a flying penguin, so I'm interested to see how this is going to go. Anyway, thank you guys for coming on today.
And we hope you've enjoyed listening and watching
In Between the Lines. See ya.
Thanks, guys.